spent some time with my wife. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think you did a great job on that. I just want to go through one piece, and then
Okay.
I made a few edits last night and kind of like moved on to the next step, and then from there I have some more things that you could review and stuff. So,
Awesome.
yeah, we're here on your pull request over here.
Okay.
And so I also had Copilot run some stuff. And so let me first off jump over to right here. Do you know, have you heard of the rules for hooks in React?
Um, Maybe not. I've like used hooks, but I'm
Hmm.
not like sure on
Yeah,
the
no
rules.
worries. So over here, down here in some of these changes, I have a link for the rules for hooks. And one of them is basically just that a hook can't be inside another function because it has to be at the top of I mean, because there used to be two kinds of components inside React. You had class components and then it got switched into functional components. And
Okay.
and so yeah, basically here are the rules for hooks. Don't call hooks inside conditions or loops. Don't do it after a conditional return statement. Um, yeah, don't do it in class components. And don't do it inside use memo, use reducer, use effect. And don't call
Okay.
hooks inside of try catch finally. And there's a reason for this is because when a hook runs, it has to be able to run every single time that that widget or that component gets rendered, because it does things inside of the hooking and things like that. So if it gets added inside of a function or it gets inside of one of these things, then there's a possibility that it doesn't get called.
Okay.
Yeah, and so anyway, so it's just one of those pieces to oh, did I probably should go back here. Um, that's one of those pieces that happened right here. We created a hook, and we here let's jump into this. And it's definitely one of those like this is one of those little things that like if you don't run into it, you would never know, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so basically, let me see if I can review this in the code space. Nope, I don't want to do that. And so basically, you had it right here
Uh-huh.
inside of this. And
Yeah.
so I basically just moved, like, all I did was I moved it up to the top.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's all I did. So that's really the only piece that I need, like, we needed to update is just moving that one hook. And
Okay.
then let's see. And so basically now we can, yeah. So now we can go through. We're gonna go back here to the conversation tab, and then um, we can like work on removing some of the things. So, for example, when I did that, I have this one comment here. They said, "Hey, fix, move this to the top level of the hook," but then now this is a like a hanging comment, and
Yeah.
so then what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove that. And let's see. Do I have to be on the files tab? Is that what it says? Ah, over here. Files changed. This is where we want to do it. Um, okay, so I did a couple of things. Like you can all take a look. You can also take a look changes from all commits. So
Mhm.
this is your one commit, and then I added a few more to make a few adjustments, right?
Okay.
So one of those was I wanted to pass a few more things to it. So, for
Okay.
example, chat title, chat with us, help URL. Like if we go over and look at it, there's a there's some other stuff. So I wanted to like just kind of make it a little simpler to do this.
Okay.
So sort of click on viewed there. Um, so same thing with the public, the index and the test. Also, I noticed that I had left in here this app.tsx, and we're not actually using this file anymore. And so I just deleted
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So there's that one. And then over here, yeah, you can see this a little more clear here, where at the very top of the function, the chat support function, then I use this right here, use widget context.
Hmm.
And then I passed in, and then the other thing that I switched up a little bit is previously you were destructuring just URL out of it. And so then I
Hmm.
switched it so that it could be destructured, like the specific names could be destructured out so that we
Yeah.
can keep the consistency through the whole thing.
Okay.
So there's that. So let's see. And then I just used that in this file. Let's see, what does Copilot say here? Yep. So I'm going to agree with that. So we're going to add this. We're going to add that suggestion. It's going to basically just pull that out, delete it, and so consider adding no opener, no ref to this button. And so I'll agree with that. I think that's great. And let's see. Oh, okay. One of the other things that I did, so if you can see in the tree over here, previously we had our context inside of this components folder.
Yep.
And so I actually, I mean, it doesn't quite make sense to have our context in the component. So I moved them out and I just I made a new folder called context. And then we have theme provider and widget provider. And so that way we just kind of keep things contained like that.
Sweet.
Those are good. And right here, I'm going to add that suggestion. Actually, normally I just do this in the editor. So I would just be like, hey, let's just delete the whole thing.
Right.
We can leave it for now. Or let's see. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to do this in my editor and then I'll show you how that works. I'm also noticing this right here needs to go. That's just a console. See where this is line 22 of the use chat. Use chat line 22. Yep. So I'm going to just delete that guy. And okay. So save that. I've also saved one of the other pieces that I noticed that got added was you probably did an npm install or an npm function, and so then that added the package -lock.json into the.
Oh, whoops.
I know it's fine. No, I mean no worries. I'm just using bun here, and so we don't need both.
Okay. Right. Right.
And so and it's fine. I just added the package lock JSON to the git ignore, so if it happens, then like it doesn't get pushed back into the stuff. So for example,
Right.
this got deleted. The git ignore got updated. There's that one. Let's just go back and double check if there's anything else it wants us to do. Okay, so yep, that's looking great. Index. Yep. So we've added some of that. So that one's good. And okay. So what I'm going to do is before I finish this, I'm going to push my changes. Let's go that. Come on. Code. Okay, and then let's double check that we have one more commit that shows up here. So now, if we come down here to the bottom, then there's a new commit that has been added. So perfect. And then we probably do. I'm going to go back through the files one more time just because we have to double check everything. So that one is good. Okay, so I'm going to re-add that one to the batch because it hasn't been finished yet. And so basically, this is kind of doing the same thing as editing the files. So that suggestion, that's reviewed. Okay, so it's just really those two suggestions from Git. And we'll review these. Wait, this is the one I want. Okay.
Sweet.
So now we're done there, and we can say, okay. Okay. So after we've gone through kind of our code review stuff, now we can merge this pull request. And what I'm going to do, there's several different ways that you can push changes into the master branch. One of them is create a merge commit, and what that will do is that's going to take each one of these commits, and it's going to just add those to our Git repository. I don't generally like doing that because I commit pretty frequently, and I don't know, my commits probably aren't necessarily the highest quality of every time, and so like I use it almost more like a save as opposed to like there are people who are like, hey, every single commit needs to be a working version, right?
Right.
And so I do agree with that on the master branch. I absolutely agree that every commit needs to be a working commit on the master branch. But if you have a side branch, then I use it more as like, hey, this is my save button that I can go back and see like, hey, what did I change? And that way, like, I don't have, so I don't have as many, like, I want more save spots so that so that I can go back and be like, what did I just change just there? Right.
Sure.
Right. So,
yeah.
So what I recommend most of the time for this is we're going to do this squash and merge. And what that does is that takes all of the different commits from our branch. It pushes them all together into one commit. And what we're doing here is we're making sure that all of it is working at this spot. And so that makes sense to get pushed into the master branch as one working commit. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to click on the squash and merge, and then we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then it's going to give us the description for all the different commits that showed up that we created while we went through it, and then it's going to say, hey, here's the co-authors, and stuff like that. So confirm and squash merges or merge request, and then that then gets pushed into our commit. Now, what that does though is that kind of leaves because we now have all of those that are now squashed and pushed into our branch. Here, I guess you can visualize it over here in source tree a little better. I'm going to do a fetch. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but you see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is kind of what's happened. I made this one example function, which actually I deleted later because you did a better job of it anyway. So then these are all of the commits that you had, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I pulled in your changes, and so this is me, and then this is you, and then what we did is in GitHub itself, we squashed all of those together, and now this is the result of that. What that means though is that there's not going to be a merge between here and here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what will happen is now that there's not going to be a merge, then it doesn't make sense to keep you can keep this branch for you locally, but
Mm-hmm.
on the site or on GitHub, we're going to go ahead and delete this branch, and that way it kind of keeps our context clean. If
Okay.
you want to keep this indefinitely, you're welcome to. I recommend every so often coming out and cleaning out the old branches. It just basically ends here, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
And so in the future, if you're like, okay, I'm going to start working on a new thing, then you're going to make a new branch and you're going to name it something different, and it's going to branch off and it's going to go do its own thing until we move it back into the master branch.
Right.
As
Okay.
its own merge commit or squash commit.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yep. Awesome.
So, yeah, let's talk about kind of what the next things that would be interesting to add to this. So, so here it is, right? We're good. Oh, actually, in my code over here, I am actually going to switch back into the master branch and sync the changes. Okay. So let me just clean up over here. Goodness. Okay, so I just want to run this for a second. Bun run start. Actually, build widget. I'm gonna do that one. Do. Oh, it got to it before I.
I did have just a quick question. For the context, I I put that undefined is the default value, but I know you had talked about how maybe for clients you were going to implement this with that
Mhm.
you would have an option to like self-host it versus have them do the back end calls. And so did you want maybe like your webhook for the chat to be the default value, and then if they choose to put their own URL, it'll be theirs, and then it can kind of switch. Um,
Yeah, one of the things that we do need to start looking at is, where does this get hosted, right?
Mhm.
Um, 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 so I mean, there's like services like this where it's like unpackage, and basically this just allows you to host like a file out on the internet, right?
Uh-huh.
And like a dependency file, kind of like we're talking about here. So that's one place. You can also do this in like GitHub Pages. But so for example, we'll go through here, and this is how I'm considering this happening, right? So the the this file here is actually hosted with Unpackage or wherever that needs to be hosted. And
Mhm.
then exactly like we have right here, this would be all of the information would then be overridden here. And so this is unique to every client that we have set up. And one of the
Okay.
reasons why this is going to be unique to every client is because um, we're going to be training each AI for each client
Mhm.
specifically, and so then they all have their own webhook that is the backend for their data. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So there's that. The one other piece, and so let me see if I make some notes here. Or do you want to maybe just write down a few notes while I like just like I don't need a piece of paper or something, and we can. Um, so the one piece is
Yeah.
right now this is an unauthenticated webhook. So basically anybody could call this, and they would be able to interact with it. What we want to do, another piece we want to do is we want to have this actually be authenticated with some kind of a um, some kind of a pre-shared key or a pre-shared whatever. And so right here
Okay.
under our AI chat, when we click on this right there, we can select, right now it says authentication none. We're going to be using basic auth, and we will create new credentials. We would probably create a new credential for each person. And so we would need to say like test user, and then password, I don't know if I'm just typing password, right? So, oh, close. Dang it. Shouldn't have done that one. New credential.
Um, I don't know if you mean for me to be seeing what you're
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
but
Sorry. I went to the other screen. Let's
all good.
Thanks for that's what I need sometimes.
Okay,
That's
you
what you're
got it.
here for, man. Test user. So this is Notamation. You test user. There we go. Save. So now there's basic authentication on this particular webhook, right? So
Mhm.
what we're going to be doing back over in our code is, come on, I have too many windows and not enough. There we go. So the next thing that we would want to add here is we would need to add a new context variable, which would be called auth, right?
Mhm.
And um, that's always going to be the same. There's only basic here, so you could do user name, right? Um, and password, and then another comma. So then the next thing that needs to happen is we have to come down here to the use chat, and we need to update the chat message. Where is, just kidding, this isn't our context over here. So up here we need to update the type, of our widget context value, we need to update the type to include an auth object. And so then you can either do that by creating a new type down here that's the auth, and basically the auth is just username and password. And then we'd have up here, this would include an auth that is an of auth type, if that makes sense. And then we want to, and then we can come back into our use chat, and down here in our fetch request, then we can pass in our basic authentication. Now, most of the time with your basic authentication, it's base 64 encoded, and so sometimes you have to do a little bit of work there to make sure that that your auth gets pushed out correctly. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Although now that I'm thinking about that, for this particular one, the problem that we're running into, and I'm just realizing now, is this is actually public on the front end. There is no obfuscating this because this script is just printed on the screen. I mean, it's printed on the back end. So I don't actually know if there's a way to, for us to do, well, I'll have to think on this one. Now, so with that thought, I think we'll probably have to wait on the auth. I mean, right now it doesn't matter because there's not a lot happening here. But anyway, so but similarly, we're gonna I want to do the next step, which is going to be a very similar step to this one, and that is I would like to be able to pass in. Right now, this is hard coded to say, hello, I'm the AI chat assistant. How can I help you today? I would like to be able to adjust this right here. So I'd like to have a.
It's still showing me on my screen.
Let's see that one.
There we go. Yep, now we're good.
Sweet. There we go. Just all the things. All right. Okay. So now, I should look over here because that's where I can see what you can see. Yeah. Anyway. So, we have over here, this is our default chat thing. It's hard coded right here. If we go back to our widget provider up here, we would want to add in like a list or an array of strings that could be passed in. So then over here, instead of having auth like this, we would have, default message, right? Default messages, and then this is an array. Nope. Sometimes. And then we would just have a set of messages. Yeah. There you go. Something like that, right? And then so we'd have to update our widget provider to allow for the default messages. And then over here, if you see right here, it says, if there are messages, then we want to map across them, and then it is going to do all of this stuff. And so very, very similarly, instead of messages like this would be default messages, right? And then we would use all of this information, and then we'd loop across, and for each default message, then we're going to have this, it would output that text. Does that make sense? Should we go into it a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand exactly.
Okay, well, let's dive into it here for a second, and I'll just kind of we'll go through and build it together for a second. So the first step is we have this new object here that we're going to be passing in on the front end, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
its name is default messages. So then we need to go through, and currently our widget provider doesn't know what that means, right? So we're
Hmm.
going to do a new type, and um, one second. My wife is calling me.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Actually, probably is. This is probably simple enough. We can just do um, default messages is a string array, and just like that. Yep. Okay. If this was more complicated, if it was like actually like an object or it had multiple pieces, you might make its own type and then apply the type. But where this is just a string array, we're gonna call it good there.
Okay.
Um, And with that, I think that's all we need to update here, because now the widget context is aware. The widget context is aware that now we have default messages. So
Hmm.
then we can come over to our chat support, and up in here we can now collect default messages. And it knows about it because of the typing.
Uh-huh.
So see that it knows that there's a default messages object here that we can use. So now we have this array of default messages, and let's see, we're gonna come down here, and this right here is the one initial message
Yeah.
that we have. And so
Hmm.
I'm gonna just comment that out for a second, and I want to do. I'm gonna try and see if ChatG or Copilot can help me out here. Oh, so it. We're gonna not do this one. This is if it's trying to do markdown. There's,
Hmm.
but we're not doing markdown, so I'm just gonna do. Um, we're just gonna grab this one piece. Okay. Chat bubble, chat avatar, chat message. Okay. Save that. And then let me. Okay, let's see if this works. Nope, something didn't work. Did I wonder if come on. Let's double check that we are getting chat messages into the chat support here. We won't do this inside of the... Try both of these. So I'm still not seeing our chat widget or our messages. So let's check in our console. Ah, that's where it is. So this is an array of 0. So let's check and see why that's not showing up.
In the context, is it being passed through the provider?
It should be being passed through the provider, yeah. Just make sure I'm getting this into both locations here. The build should be the one that is the... Oh, we gotta restart our server. Come on. Yeah, I do wonder maybe if this isn't... Oh, I think I know where this is happening. Inside of this right here. This is what it is. We didn't pass in right here. Default messages. Yep, right there. Where? Yep, right here. So under render widget, we need to pass in default messages as well. Back to the... Okay, check this out.
Nice.
There it is. So message 1, message 2 now showing up in the... It's not really morning, but hey, whatever. And so now when you click on the new chat, then it resets the chat. Okay.
Awesome.
So, does that kind of make sense what we did? I mean, that was a little bit of troubleshooting. I forgot where to go with my life, but hey.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, cool. So we have to pass in the information into this render widget because we're accepting that information from over here. Then we dump that information into our widget provider, and then we can use that widget, or the information from the widget provider as context for what's going on. Okay, so there's a couple of pieces that you could add. Like, so for example, if we wanted to allow this ask any questions for our AI to answer, if you wanted to go through, I'm going to push this. I'll make a new make a new branch for kind of the code that I've already finished right here. And then if you wanted to pull that branch and work off of it as well. So let me just go do that real quick. Create a new branch, add additional data to context. And so like if we wanted to go through and add some more pieces that would make sense, for example, ask any questions for AI. If we want to make that configurable, then that would be awesome. One other piece that I think would be helpful is over in right here in our render widget function. Mm-hmm. What I'd like to do is, like you said, I mean, we want to be able to override any of these pieces, right? So if we pass in any of them, then we want them to be overridden. But if they don't get passed in for whatever reason, then we want to provide a default. For example, the title could always say chat with us unless it's been passed in, and then we use whatever was passed in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that here. And so basically the way that would look is you would check to see if it's empty, or if it's, like if not workflow URL, then add one. I mean, the one piece that is required is going to be the workflow URL. The rest of these probably could be have a default, and we can go from there.
Okay.
So that's one piece. One other piece that I would like to figure out, and it may be a little more complex, and so I may need to get involved in helping you, figure it out or whatever. But one of the things that I would love to do is, I guess there's two pieces. One of them is I would love to be able to do something along the lines of, if they say, chat with a human, or something along those lines, I want to create a tool inside of Notamation that then sends back information to this chat that then allows it to kind of switch from being an AI chat to a person chat. Like,
okay.
And so that's one of those things, and like I said, this might be a little more complex than you're ready for at the moment, but just so you kind of know where my head's going, right?
Yeah.
um
Well,
yeah.
I I think actually I've done a lot of stuff with that. Like, is something that you maybe would want to do there, like maybe some natural language processing sort of thing, where like if it says something along the lines of like human representative,
Hmm.
something like that, it'll automatically direct them. Because I've done a lot of like NLP stuff where it's like if it detects a certain language to,
Hmm.
do something with it.
Yeah, so what it would look like is, yeah, here we are. So like if we come over here, one of the tools here that we're going to add into this AI agent would be talk to a human.
Mhm.
And so then what would happen is this tool would then send back a specific like JSON structure or whatever to our chat
Mhm.
to then say, "Hey, this is this is now not an AI chat anymore. Now this is a human chat."
Yep.
And so then either, I mean, there's a couple of ways that could look, right? One of the ways is, so there's this when chat message received right here, and it's currently hooked to an AI agent, right? So, but maybe instead of that, there's an if switch here, right?
Mhm.
And and so we go like that. If if something about our current chat is AI, then we're going to keep talking to the AI. But when this, at some point, if the tool gets triggered to say, "Hey, you're now talking to a person," we're going to send some data to the chat, and then it's going to say, "Okay, cool." I actually, sorry, let me switch back to my screen here so you can see this. Yeah, that's better. Um, so currently, before, this is what it looked like: is chat message received, talk to an AI agent, right? And then here's the tool. Currently, we don't have a tool set up for it.
Yep.
What would happen is if if the AI is like determines, "Hey, I need to use the tool for talk to a person," then that tool then sends back code to our thing, so that on all of the future chat messages, it's going to also pass some data. And if we go back to our code here and we go down to the use chat, currently this is what is getting sent to our chat widget. It's just session ID, action, chat input, right? So we can define any information we want to pass over, though. We can add any additional information we want. And so maybe, type could be, you could have a type called AI chat.
Okay.
And then, but there could also be a human chat, right?
Yep.
And so then what would happen is over on our Notamation side, the default is AI chat. It comes into the tool, then this AI agent sends back information, you know, in this response here. We can say whatever we want in this response, right? And so then we could save in, again, a piece of context, some state that says, "Hey, we're going to be talking to a person now." And so then from there, and so like this is kind of the process I'm going through, just like, "Hey, this is how we could go about this," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um and so um then we can set the message, and we can set the message or something like, "Hey, we're working on connecting you with somebody." And then from there, so that's this client side. And then from there, we're going to add this switch. This is an if switch. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I don't want an actual switch. I want an if. If if your chat type is AI, then it's going to talk to this guy. If your chat, if your type is something else, whether it's person chat or something, then we hook this to Slack or something, or we hook this to some other service.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then and I'm sure there's going to be another step involved there to make sure that like everything is formatted correctly, and then we can respond with the right information. But um you know this is that's kind of the direction I'm going. It seems like if we're making a chat bot, for businesses, we need to be able to send we need to be able to have a human like looped in when appropriate, right?
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you
Definitely.
think?
No, I think that's great. Yeah.
So I don't know kind of necessarily what you want to, if you want to like dig into it or see if you can like mess with it or whatever. um but that's kind of where that's my next thought is I want to create the chat tool that allows you to talk to a human and then get connected with a human and then work back and forth with a human instead of a chat AI chat.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great.
cool. I do have another meeting coming up in 10 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm gonna let me finish. Let me just push these changes into um, right. I'm calling it example changes. You're welcome to go back and undo anything you need to,
Okay.
or what do I need to save? Um, okay, so I'm gonna publish that branch uh, to my, and so then you can go ahead and pull that branch down,
Okay.
um, and then you could like adjust it or change it or whatever, and we can then when you're ready, then let me know and I can review it and kind of, yeah. If there's
Sweet.
any ideas you have, then fantastic. So
Sounds good. Yeah. I will dig into it.
okay, and then I also did stream this to YouTube so that you can go back and review it if you need to. I don't know if
Okay.
that's helpful or not, but there you go.
No, that's great. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, all right. Chat with you in a bit. Bye.
Yep. See ya.